Hey there, I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Davy.
And we're just two Asian women having candid conversations about whatever the hell we want to talk about with an intersectional flair.
That being said, today's topic is a continuation of our discussion last time about the movement for Black lives, specifically our experiences speaking about BLM and racial injustice to our friends and peers. Get comfy and stick around. Hi, everybody. My name is Davy, and I'm one half of Just Two Asian Women, and I started doing social justice in 2020.
And I'm Carolyn, the other half of Just Two Asian Women. And if it's your first time listening, I'm Laotian American. I have 2 dogs. I'm a Gemini, and we support Black Lives Matter. So the last episode, we're kind of talking about how we felt about Black Lives Matter in general, when it kind of had a surge in mainstreamness again in 2020. But now we're going to kind of shift a little bit and talk about how we felt about talking about Black Lives Matter with our friends and peers, because that's important work that we all have to do, because it's one thing to learn everything, but it's another thing to share what you've learned with people who, sometimes they don't take the time to go out and learn what you learned.
Right. And I think one of the most effective ways is to change people's minds is to talk to them individually and have multiple conversations.
Exactly. When I started posting about Black Lives Matter in my story, well, obviously, I think it's really important to kind of let it be known where you stand. I don't want to be known as someone who's like apolitical and I just don't care enough to put something in my story, or I don't think it's relevant enough to my brand or for my followers. I feel really strongly about racial justice and police reform and stuff like that. So I'm like, I'm going to talk about it. It's not something to be hidden.
The more we speak it out into existence, oh my gosh, I'm actually saying that. And just exposure for that matter, it really helps drive the conversation and is in the back of people's minds. So it's readily accessible.
Exactly. You got to plant the seed, right?
Mhm.
So, to be honest, when I was sharing all that stuff on my social media platforms, all of the reception I got was, generally positive. And, I don't do that stuff to be praised or like pat on the back or like, good for you. You posted something.
Right? What is that called again? Virtue signaling?
Yes, virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't post it for that purpose, but like statistically speaking, like any interaction that I get from that was generally positive,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm pretty happy about. Like there was no random follower of mine who was like, how dare you, this is stupid, blah 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 blah. I feel pretty good about that, but something that bothers me is when sometimes I will like DM a mutual of mine. Maybe they shared like some false information, or maybe they said something questionable in their story, and then I would be like, hey, actually that's not the case and you should probably like take this down.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate it when they don't reply to me. I'm all like, bitch, we
They
talked so much
don't?
before this. Red receipt is on, no reply. And I'm all
Oh,
like,
hell no.
I'm just trying to help you. Like, I don't hate you.
I know. You're just saying, yo, I like what you're doing, but like that's what you're saying is wrong. So put up correct information for everybody.
Yeah, or like very few times there'd be like a follower, a mutual who like asks a question in my story who's like, oh, but why? Blah blah blah. And I'm all like, oh, great question. It's because blah 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 systematic racism, blah 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 white supremacy, blah blah, all that stuff. And I
Right.
would write a whole ass essay, gave them so much of my energy and time, and not even a reply. Like not even like a
Thanks.
they could have said thanks. They could have said, I disagree, which would have been fine too. I mean, okay, that's not actually fine because I would rather them be persuaded, but it's better than not replying.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like, oh my God, like I've been on the back end with Carolyn. Like she when like is looking up a topic or trying to apply back to somebody with information, she will get a Google Doc out, get her sources and everything correct. So, yep. At
Yeah, no
least
one could clock me.
yeah.
I have NPR on speed dial.
Oh my gosh. I donated to them once. Does that count?
Yes. And sometimes I would get like random internet people. Like literally I've never seen them in my life and they come to my post. You know what happens, right?
Yeah.
I make a post about talking about racial injustice and then they come in and I think there's one person in particular. They were like, "Oh, interesting, you only started caring now." And I'm
Oh.
like they're not wrong, but they're coming at me with a bad faith argument. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree. I think I saw that one.
You did. Oh, let me tell y'all, Davi like jumped in hella quick because that that random person was all like they tried to make some weird like
Argument or
argument. They tried to
claim.
sound smart, and they're all like, "Well, you only started caring right now because I look back on your post and you don't have any other posts about that." And Davi came in hella quick, and she's all like typing noises. And I was all like, "Oh, that's so nice."
Yeah, good. Because I
You
was
don't have
like,
to do that, of course, Davi, but thank you.
right. No, I felt it. I felt like it because I was like, you're not about to fuck with my girl Carolyn. Like, I'll tell you what's up. Because also he was just like some random ass person. So I was just like, okay, so here's my thing about arguing with random ass people online. Before I did not do it. Well, I don't know what overcame me in summer 2020, but I was like, I'm about to argue with these people I do not know, which I would never do. But I used to think like, okay, this is futile.
Mhm.
But then a part of me is like, okay, does this benefit anybody? Like, why am I doing this? And first of all, I think it does. It benefits. Well, first of all, I'm sticking up for Carolyn, so she knows she has support and doesn't have to like face that alone. Whether I don't know if you wanted that or not. Did you want that or did you care? Like, if
No,
people were like,
I really do appreciate it, but I would prefer that like my friends or mutuals or even random people not do that on
"Mhm,
my post just because I know I can diffuse that person more quickly if that makes
mhm,
sense.
mhm." Oh, okay.
Or in a way that I would prefer, though the arguments are great for my engagement. So
Okay.
if you do that, pop off.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I was just like, I don't know. I think depending on the person, if they want that support or not, it might benefit them, or it just might benefit other people who are reading.
Yeah.
Because the guy was like claiming, oh, we don't care with back until now, like, or like he was claiming like neoliberalism. They only see what's going on surface level, right? They don't see Carolyn donating. They don't see Carolyn like learning all like about anti-racist work, or see her reading books about that, making like paragraphs, like typing notes. Like they don't see that. So it's annoying because to see only surface level what is on her Instagram page is not fair. So anyway, to me. So anyway,
Sure. And I think a lot of that person's argument was irrelevant. But you know, they weren't wrong in the sense that I did start posting it like in 2020.
right.
So to that I'm all like, okay, yeah, hats off to you. You're right. If you're ever like facing those people, like I always do reply to them. If they ask like a real question, if they come in with like literal like hate speech or like bad faith argument slash accusations, I'm all like, you didn't come in here to talk with me. You came in here to attack me, which doesn't require me to reply.
Yes, that's a
So
really good key
mhm.
difference of like when to use your energy and when to just not choose your battles, basically, right?
Exactly. So there was a lot of people like that on that one post I'm referring to. And I would just delete the comment, honestly, because I need to protect the vibes in my comments section. Because if you let the hate comments run rampant, like I know if you have a really big following, it's impossible to monitor all of them.
Right,
And I'm talking about like legit hate comments, not like reasonable criticisms,
right.
but legit hate comments that only come at you for to attack with only spewing like false information and stuff like that. I just delete them because I want people who actually have something to say feel comfortable saying it in the comments.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. And I saw something earlier that ring true, really rang true to me. It's like not all comments or opinions are equal, and also that's your space. So you can do whatever the fuck you want with your comments. Like, you
Yep.
do not have to reply. You do not have to keep it. Like I kind of learned that on my YouTube. Like some people say weird shit, and I'm like, I'm not deleting this because this is weird. Like,
Yeah, as you should. This is a little bit of a tangent too, but sometimes I watch a lot of like drama videos on YouTube.
yeah.
And a lot of the drama commentators like criticize like problematic influencers for like deleting comments or turning off comments.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be a controversial opinion, but I kind of feel like they have the right to do what they want. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to keep all those comments there. Like, even though they're problematic, they're still like a person and it's their space in their channel.
Yeah, totally. Let's say on Facebook, okay, I have like initiated some. Okay, so I usually on Facebook just reply back to people's nonsense. So like there was this white lady on Facebook. I only knew her because it was like a mutual, but she was just like focusing on like, oh, these Black Lives Matters protests are so violent and like blah blah blah. And she was just focusing on the side effect of or the outcome of like racism and like Black people being oppressed for like centuries instead of the actual problem, like racism itself and like police brutality. So I called her out on that. I was like, can you like not focus on that and like focus on the root cause? And then she was like, well, they killed two police officers. Do you think that's helping? Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, that's unfortunate. But like, again, the reason why that happened in the first place is because they're defending themselves or the anger and outlash, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I called her out on her like white privilege. And she was like, you guys always like use that term. And I'm like, this is my first time ever talking to her. So I was like, you don't, I was like, okay. So I kind of just like, all right, I'm just going to stop because like at
Mm-hmm.
this point, like what is my purpose? I'm trying to hopefully persuade somebody to like think differently. And in this case, she was entrenched in her own ideas. I knew that wasn't gonna happen, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes I know you all have had this experience. Sometimes you talk to somebody and they're already too far gone. You're all like, oh shit, this person is literally not going to listen to anything I say.
Exactly. So I kind of just stopped. I was like, oh, I was like, I tried to like, hey, but I was like, that was futile. So I moved on. And then the second time I like argued or like talked back to somebody on Facebook. We talked about it in our last episode, but just to reintroduce it again, it was somebody who implied that we there's black on black crime and giving money. Oh, in Chicago there's black on black crime and they have like one of the strictest like gun laws and regulations. He's basically saying like giving money and stuff wouldn't help. But said like I demystified the myth. There's no such thing as black on black crime. Crime comes from poverty. Crime comes from like lack of jobs, frustration, racism, like so many different things. So again, people are not going to the root causes and understanding like the complexity of crime
Right.
and protests. It's really frustrating because they only see like the surface.
But it's good that you tried, you know?
Mhm.
You're like, maybe I could with these people. And honestly, most of the time, it's not going to work, but we still have hope that it's going to lead to something good somewhere. We're never going to
Yeah.
see that goodness, but it's going to happen somewhere.
Right. And I think like what Carolyn said in the last episode, like you kind of just throw it out there and of course they're defensive. They're not gonna like really listen to you, but maybe down the line they might. There's a very slight chance. Or maybe somebody else reading in the comment sections, they're like, ooh, who's arguing today? Maybe they'll read it and like not have known about the myth of black on black crime, the root causes of crime in general.
Yeah. It's important to engage these people at the same time. It's important to understand when to back off or when it's even worth it to start.
Yes.
Life is always about balance. So it sounds like two different ideas, but they need to they need to mesh with each other and then life will be balanced.
Yes. Oh, speaking of balance, I feel like you have a story about that person in your art world who you tried to convince so hard.
Oh,
When did you realize it was a lost cause? Because you took a long time.
uh, I love this story. It makes me so mad, but it's a great story. Okay, so let me just preface. Going back to that post about racial injustice real quick that Davi and I were talking about
Mhm.
earlier with the random internet people. If they genuinely had a good question, I would hit them up in the comments, give an initial reply. Very diplomatic if I do say so myself. At the end, I would be like, yo, DM me and let's keep talking. Because that's my way of calling them out. Like, you're either just like wanting to have a pissing competition with me in public to kind of make me look dumb, or you actually want to learn. So it's
Yeah.
like, bring it to the DMs and we could really talk so I could like understand where you're coming from.
Carolyn
So
is very diplomatic, but also assertive.
thank
Because it's
you.
like,
Thank you.
yeah, because it's right. It's like you weren't gonna leave it alone. You're like, talk to me.
Now you have something to say, say it.
Say it to my face, bitch.
I would reply, be like, don't reply to this comment, just DM me, And most of the time, they would just reply to my comment without DMing me. And I'm
Of
like, okay,
course.
I see you don't know how to read, so I'm gonna DM you. So I would DM these people, and I would say almost out of all the people I DM'd, only one person like actually engaged in some type of conversation with me.
Oh shit. Okay, yeah, no wonder. Because I was thinking not many people would have replied back to you. Oh,
Exactly.
okay.
Like a lot of people would just not reply. I'd be like, hey, remember that conversation we had? I said you should DM me, but you didn't, so I'm DMing you. So what's up?
Exactly. People are a lot more. It's weird though. People are a lot more bold publicly.
And then they would just end up like not replying or blocking me, which, like I said, totally fine. They could do what they want, you know?
Yeah, seriously.
If they want to protect their own weird, low key racist energy, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like they didn't want to continue with that energy. They're just like, heh, sprinkle
Yeah.
racism right here.
But there was one person who did reply to me who was that guy claiming to be like a neoliberalist.
Uh-huh.
I still don't know what the fuck he was talking about till this day.
Yeah,
Uh,
same. I looked it up and I was like really confused.
but we had a decent conversation, and in
Okay.
the end, like in my opinion, he kind of like stuck to his ways and I stuck to my ways.
Right.
But at least we were able to come to like an understanding, like, oh, interesting, you feel that way.
I like that.
Hmm. So now I'm gonna get into like a little bit of a longer, deeper story about a time I really attempted to like confront someone who I thought was my friend, you know. We're gonna call them Victor Crumb. We're gonna stick to the Harry Potter themed names.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Victor Crumb. There's also another person, Draco Malfoy, involved, but we'll bring them in later. And just to specify, these names are totally random. Like I just choose the names from like a wiki list of Harry Potter characters. I don't like think hard about how these characters relate to these people.
Right.
Like
So
they
like
don't.
Victor doesn't like his personality does not relate to the person Carolyn's really talking about.
Yeah, it's like it's not that deep, you know.
Yeah.
So Victor Crumb, I was in this art group. I ran the art group with Draco Malfoy. And Draco and I thought it was really important to talk about Black Lives Matter because it was happening. It's like, yeah, we're artists, but like racism affects every aspect of life. And it would be good to just let them know that we're willing to have these
Yes.
conversations. We're not just,
Everything
yeah,
affects everything. Mhm.
yes. And we wanted to let them know that we would be willing to have these conversations. You could come to us if you want to talk about it. Draco and I were like, hey, everyone, you know, Black Lives Matter is happening. It fucking sucks because racial injustice sucks, obviously. I worded it way more eloquently, but that's
Mhm.
basically the gist of it.
Mhm.
So then Victor comes in, and look, Victor has some shitty ass opinions, but I do appreciate them willing to come in to talk about it. White people say things, and it lets you know that they're low key racist. Victor Crumb would say stuff like, oh, you know, my area can be extremely racist on both ends, which implies reverse racism, which literally does
Mhm.
not exist. They would say things like, oh, I have a black friend. I love black people.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know, that's a classic low-key racist thing to say if you're a white
Yes.
person.
It's like ready for them. They're saying that because they're defending something.
Exactly, it's like their proximity to a select number of black people must mean that they're not racist. Victor also said like, oh, you know, there's more deaths from gang on gang violence and from farming accidents than like racist stuff, you know, lol.
Yikes.
I know, you know what gang on gang violence means.
Girl, gang on gang is black on black. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Where the white gangs at? Okay. Name me
there
one white gang. There probably are, but like
there's a lot of them. But based on what we know about Victor, we know that that's code, right? Everything that they're saying is kind of like racist
coded.
code, like polite
Mm.
racist code for racist ideas.
Right. Like we know we can encode, everyone y'all know what people are really talking about.
Yeah. Victor also said like, oh, you know, I would also like to say that I've heard from a good number of African Americans in real life and on the internet that they're not happy with Black Lives Matter. But you know, I don't know enough about the reasons, but I thought I'd bring up this weird opinion anyway, even though I have no opinion on it and no research on it.
Exactly. That is such a weird thing to say. It's like, okay, like you found a select few of African American or Black people who don't support BLM. They don't speak for the entire Black diaspora.
Exactly. Like, I'm not gonna explain like every little bit of why all of these
Right.
like coded ideas are racist, because they are. And if you are wondering how they are,
Google it.
Google it, email us at justtwoasianwomen@gmail.com. Like, it's, let me tell you, it was all ideas strongly rooted in racism, right? So basically, I was all like, what the fuck? I like Victor Crumb. Where the fuck did this come from? You know? Draco came in hot, you know, and Draco was all like, oh, but blah, 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 blah. You know, a little
Mhm.
bit, I don't want to say angered, I think appropriately emotional, you know?
Yes.
You know, and I was saying my piece too. And at the end, Victor was all like, oh, I knew this was gonna happen. I shouldn't have said anything. I knew you're all gonna attack me. And I'm all like, oh, bitch.
We call that white fragility, okay?
Literally, that is white fragility. Like, they say something, they think their opinion is like God, and we're all like, actually, your opinion is kind of shit. And
Yeah.
here's like literal reasons why. And they're all like, why are you attacking me? We're having an opinion. And we're like, we're having
all
a conversation.
all opinions are
Victor.
equal. Kidding. They didn't say that, but like honestly, in this world where like everyone can put an opinion out, be careful. All opinions are not equal.
No, they're not. And I just thought it was interesting that they felt so like attacked and disregarded when they literally disregarded every point that I would have to say by not
Yes.
addressing it. Like, I would reply to everything that Victor would say in a very concise and, in my opinion, a very like reasonable, polite manner. But
It
you know,
was.
white fragility is very fragile. Like, a
Yes,
feather would break it. So even though I came in
exactly.
politely,
It was very polite because Carolyn was sending me the screenshots.
thank you, Davy. Thank you.
Yeah, and it was just very I feel like it was very objective. It wasn't like you know how like when we talk to people, Carolyn never had ever like attacked Victor's character. It was talking about the idea. It was never like, oh, you're racist or like you're stupid. You
Mhm.
know, it was like, oh, have you considered this? Or to address this, it's actually like this. Yeah.
So I was really troubled by what Victor had said. Like, literally, it bothered me so much. It's literal racism. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, it's gonna fucking bother me. And in my own art group, you know. So to find out, that's what Draco and I were worried about. We were like, what if we start talking about this and we find out someone is like harboring and clinging onto racist ideas for dear life?
Mhm.
And we found out that someone was. I
Yeah.
decided to talk to Victor in the DMs because I knew that they felt very dogpiled on in the group that we were in the online group space that we were in. But I do have to say, when we were in the art group, like, it was literally just me and Draco kind of challenging Victor's ideas.
Yeah, so
And
it can really come off at least to Victor like two people, two versus one type thing.
yeah, but I totally understand that because, again,
Mhm.
fragility.
You're right.
But also I felt honestly kind of disappointed that no one else kind of like chimed in with anything, right?
Mhm.
Like, there was a good number of people in the group. It was not like 3 or 4 people.
Oh, I see.
All like, weird that no one else like talked about anything, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like the bigger the group, the less likely people are willing to participate. But at the same time, though, I think it depends on the type of people we have as well.
I
Uh,
suppose.
Yeah, I wonder group size and like, whether they care about enough or or courage enough. I don't know. Yeah.
I I'm not gonna rationalize it. Like, I feel how I
Yeah.
feel. Like, it is
Right.
disappointing. In my mind, it seemed like everyone in silence actually agreed with Victor, and that's why they didn't want to say
Oh,
anything, because they knew that there was opposition to Victor's ideas. Victor's
right.
ideas entrenched in racism.
Yeah, totally. I can see, yeah, feeling disappointed in like everybody else too. It's like, so what do you guys side on you on? It's safe. I think it's safe to assume, people believe in those like common beliefs of those stupid racist ideas.
Yeah, racism is unfortunately more common than we think.
Yeah.
So, look, I can't confirm if that's actually the case between the other people in that
Right.
group.
That's how you felt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when they don't state their case, like, I just don't know, you
Yeah.
know? Not even a DM to me in private, like, hey, I saw the comfort, like, nothing,
Nothing.
nothing.
Oh.
So it's unfortunate, really, but I found out later that Victor had actually apologized to Draco. Like, hey, sorry, I got a little heated back there, blah, blah, blah. And let me tell you, even though this is an online space, they know what Draco and I look like. They know I'm Asian. They know that Draco is white.
Yeah, and Victor is white. So it's really odd that they only apologized to Draco and
Exactly.
not Carolyn.
I wish that Victor had reached out to me. Again, I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I'm not looking for like that was amazing, blah blah blah. But if I'm gonna engage with someone for that long, like putting a lot of effort, a lot of good faith effort, really, and I think anyone could tell from reading the transcripts of that incident. I just wish there was some acknowledgement. Because, like I said, Victor didn't even acknowledge the points that I was making. They'd be like, okay, anyway.
Yes, which is very frustrating.
It is very frustrating. And the kicker was that Victor really believed that they were like oppressed, you know? They're white, okay? They are white. And they're all like, but then there's me, and I'm just a little old Christian person. And I'm all like,
Yeah. What the heck? Which is stupid.
like the look on my face is like cringe.
Dude, that's so cringe because being Christian is not a marginalization. It's a privilege. Like,
Yeah, in America, you're
yeah.
good, okay?
If you're Christian, you're good, bro. Bro. Like if you just to get an argument for or evidence for that, look at the past presidents. If you're not Christian, you're not going to become president. If you're an atheist, oh hell no, you're never becoming president.
Absolutely not.
So you're
Yeah.
good if you're Christian. No one is persecuting you here.
No, no. So those are all the ideas that Victor harbored, right? And I'm all like, damn, that is problematic as fuck. And I think about all the other pleasant times that I've had with Victor, and I'm all like, there must be something in there that would make them realize that their ideas are actually gonna continue the cycle of racism and hurt. So I decided to DM them in private. I wrote up like a really nice researched letter, like, hey, these are all the things you said. This is why I think they're wrong. Here are links to more resources describing why they're wrong. And I want you to read it. You don't have to reply right away because, again, when people reply right away to your letters, they are just going to cry or yell at you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a natural defense reaction. I get it, you know? So it's like, just read it. You don't have to reply right away. I prefer that you don't, but this is how I feel. Like, it made me feel really uncomfortable, the fact that you said all this.
Mm-hmm.
And then Victor came back. Bitch, Victor was mad as fuck.
Yeah, I
They
forgot.
were hella mad. They replied immediately too, so you know they
Yes,
were hella mad.
it's funny because when Carolyn sent me the letter, I was like, Carolyn, this is beautiful, but in my head, I'm like, dang, like they're gonna reply back with, not as much effort and thought
Yeah.
as you would.
So actually, Victor was like, first of all, they were fucking mad as hell, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like, I'm so fucking offended by what you wrote, Carolyn. That's what Victor said. They felt like they were being like attacked for having opinions, basically, which is questionable. They also blamed me for their very severe mental health issues
Oh
that
no.
happened. So love that. I'm just kidding. That's very manipulative.
Yes.
They blamed me for them like feeling absolutely terrible. I won't get into details because it is trigger worthy. Then, when I knew that it was actually the end, they unironically linked conservative talking points.
Yes. Ew. Who do they listen to? Who's that one lawyer who's so annoying?
Uh, they linked like that one person who sits at the table and they're like, change my mind.
Oh
They
no.
linked like Bean Sharpie, you know, and I was all like, oh, you know, I thought that I could bring you back, but you're actually so far over there.
Yes.
My efforts were futile.
Yes.
I
So you
didn't know that.
replied.
And let me tell you, the letter, even though I was calling her out for harboring racist ideas, like I'm sure anyone would be offended by that, in my opinion, it was written out pretty objectively. And I didn't make it public to anyone, so I wasn't like publicly attacking them or anything like that, hence the DMing part, right?
Yeah.
And then they turn around and decide to blame me for the fact that they have really bad mental health issues and I'm the sole cause of that.
Yeah, that's so bad.
Yeah. And not gonna lie, like even though I know that's a manipulation tactic and it really holds no ground, like I still feel
Mhm.
bad, as a human. I'm all like, oh, I don't want them to feel that way, even though they have racist ideas. So when they unironically linked those conservative talking points, that's when I realized that it was time to give up, like for lack of a better term. Like at
Yeah.
some point it's like there's only so far you could go, and they don't care about me enough, and honestly nor me them enough to help them unlearn.
Yes. And I think you try your very best, but even like thinking from the beginning when Carolyn was giving, counter arguments to to Victor's like racist ideas, they had not even addressed any of Carolyn's counter arguments. So they were not they're not receptive. They were not trying to reflect on their experiences and like, I wonder how me as a white person should take some advice or like um insight from a person of color. They're not thinking like it sucks, but they're not thinking like that. They're not like, maybe I could learn from somebody who's a minority. Like it's unfortunately.
Yeah, so it is very unfortunate. And then at the very end of the note, or the end of the message, Victor was like, "Okay, now leave me alone, because otherwise I'm gonna have another fucking mental break because of you." And I was all
Oh,
like, "Okay, fair enough. I'll leave you alone. Just DM me whenever you want."
yeah.
And eventually they did DM me, nothing substantial, but I replied back. I really wanted to talk to them in person because I knew that they would not be able to talk to me that way, like in person. Not like face to face person, but like over the phone. They came back, wrote like a little message that really didn't say anything. So I was like, look, I don't want to talk about it like here. Like, I actually want us to call. Like, I want to call you.
Cool.
And they're all like, I don't feel comfortable with that. And that
Exactly.
was that. I never talked to them again. And then they're all like, "Can we just move on from this?" And I'm all like, "We cannot talk about this ever again." And honestly, that was a really big break in why that group didn't really work out, because I did honestly feel pretty betrayed by the other members in the
Mm,
group, because, like I said, I didn't know where they stood. Like, I really had no idea. I guess I could have just asked them, but I was kind of like, after that had happened with Victor, like I tell it very candidly now, but back then, like I felt very like afraid that everyone else was like Victor.
right, because we don't know.
You
Yeah.
don't, and there weren't a lot of people of color in that group, to be quite honest.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
So there's that. I do have to give a shout out to Draco, because Draco like always had my back. Like I was able to reach out to them. They're very, very good listener. They've helped me like get through all those like really bad guilty feelings I felt and stuff like that.
Oh, I see. Right, because it's really scary to speak out like that. And especially, I don't know, do you feel like because I feel like Draco was able to use their privilege a lot as a white person to, speak out. How do you feel like your race might have made you feel uncomfortable or like scared of talking about it?
I don't know if my race, maybe an Asian, ever made me feel like scared or uncomfortable to talk about it, but I felt like that definitely played a role in
Mm,
how they respected me.
yeah.
Because like I said earlier, after the whole conversation happened, like in our group space, public group space, Victor reached out to Draco unprompted to apologize,
Right, exactly. Not to
but
you.
I didn't get the same apology. Like, why? Because I wasn't as angry, or because I really don't know, and I don't think I could ever understand it, but I think it has something to do with, oh man, I made another white person angry. That's bad. We got to stick together. I'm going to apologize to them.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's the only thing I could chalk it up to, because I really don't understand why they wouldn't reach out to me afterwards either.
Yep.
So, that is a long, terrible story about Victor and how an attempt to talk to a friend, like, literally went the worst way possible, to be quite honest. So that's unfortunate. And at that point, that's when I knew I had to cut the friendship off, or any type of relationship off, because their values are always going to be different from mine. Like, they could say that we could still be friends even though we have different quote political opinions end quote, but that's an opinion I can't accept. Like if you like Hitler, I can't accept that opinion. Like we can't be friends. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that Victor likes Hitler, but I'm just saying that I have cutoff points from when I don't want to put energy into our relationship, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about our experience with internet spaces. Overall, I feel like in the internet world, trying to talk to people about Black Lives Matter was pretty overall, maybe even unsuccessful,
Mhm.
chaotic, and draining.
I agree. It gave me a lot of like nervousness and
Yeah,
anxiety, apprehension, pretty
yeah.
much. Like waiting for a response or like crafting the response. And for what? I really don't know if it did much,
Mhm.
but I can just play. All right, I tried, and I think that was not the route. I'm just gonna focus on our next topic and how we talk to our in real life peers and our friends. I think is more effective.
Yeah. Well, so why don't you start off, Dobby? Because I was talking forever about Victor and Draco.
For sure. Okay, so I have friends who are in support of Black Lives Matter. So I was not very concerned about that. My main concern was kind of how like people went on if they like publicly on social media supported Black Lives Matter. So the issue is some people think it's not okay to call people out and to like make them feel bad for not posting anything about Black Lives Matters on social media like Instagram, Facebook, etc. So the issue is it okay to push people to share Black Lives Matter, or is it not okay to make people feel bad about not posting Black Lives Matter, assuming they're helping the movement in other ways? I don't know. For me, I'm like, bro, just post something. Like it's like, yeah, okay. My whole thing is like, just because you're uncomfortable does not mean you're not safe.
Mhm.
What's the harm in posting like a BLM story or a BLM post? I don't know. I understand it's scary. When I first did it, I was like, should I? And then like after you do it a few times, it's like, all right, still uncomfortable, but I'm still doing it.
Mhm.
Ah, and I think the reasons why it's important is because first of all, it's a movement. It's going to be like one day. It's like months. It can be years long. You need to show people like the injustice. You need to remind them. In my head, it's not a hard decision for me. Like just post it, dude.
Yeah, it's really not that hard, you know? Like, what people are afraid of is when they make like a little post in their 24-hour story that
Mhm.
one of their followers or fucking real life friends is gonna DM them like, "How dare you support Black Lives Matter? You're a fucking idiot!" You know? That's what they're afraid of, which is, first of all, that's not gonna happen unless you're friends with literal racists.
Yes,
Most people are just gonna ignore you if they don't care. And
exactly.
the people who do care are going to be like, "Oh my god, that's amazing that you support that." You know, you touched on it. Like posting online is literally the least you could do.
Yes.
Literally, I'm not saying it's bad. Like, please continue posting online, but it is the least you could do, and it's really not that hard. You press on Instagram, you press the fucking airplane button, you put it in your story, and you're all like, "Well, that took 5 seconds."
Yeah, exactly. So, like, oh, I know people are afraid of potential lashback and it's scary, but yeah. But then you also want to think about, okay, for those who reply like that, then you know what's up.
Yeah, like good. I hope they replied to that so I could fucking block them.
Exactly. Like it's totally funny. I have a friend, she's really bold, but somebody replied back about Black Lives Matters like in opposition of it and she like screenshotted it and put on her story and like that's why I blocked these motherfuckers. She was like
I
did
love
not
that.
give a shit.
Weeding out weeding out the snakes.
Yeah, so I kinda luckily, I've only had one bad experience and one neutral one. It was not quite a battle, but, my friend kinda, like, asked me there's this very popular quote. It says, "If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." So similar to like silence is violence. In my stories, I have had messages about like, yeah, like if you guys don't post stuff on Black Lives Matters, like you really should, and if you don't, then you're on the side of the oppressor type thing. So my really close friend, who I know is like very much about like social Black Lives Matters, she asked me, "Hey, I have a question. Like, since I don't post about Black Lives Matter on my social media because I'm pretty quiet on social media in general, like, am I choosing the side of the oppressor?" And I was like, "Damn, let me think." What are your initial thoughts, Carolyn?
To answer your question bluntly,
Yeah.
like, yeah, she is.
Yeah.
And look, that might be a hard pill to swallow. We literally just had a discussion about how easy it is to just post one thing on social media. And you might think that it doesn't matter, but you touch a lot of people on social media. Even if you only have like 50 followers, those are like probably the people you know in real life. And
Mm-hmm.
they're going to see that and they're like, oh, maybe I should think about that some more, you know? Not everyone's a trumpet thinking that
Mm-hmm.
white people are supreme, but it's like, why? Her question is like, why should I? And then I would counter that like, well, why not?
Exactly.
Like the good that comes from it is uh so much more than the potential bad, the irrational bad that could come from it, right?
Yeah.
Irrational bad being backlash from a secret QAnon trumpet who's like raging on you for
Mm-hmm.
posting in your fucking story about Black Lives Matter. That
Yeah,
is an irrational fear.
it is.
Unless you have like 100,000 followers and you have a lot of eyes on you, that's not going to happen.
Right. Exactly. So I eventually ended up answering a question like with more explanation, but I basically said, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you are. Like, unfortunately, I'm sorry. Like, because even if they are doing work, like donating, yeah, in the front end, it's like you're silent. So unfortunately,
And at the same time, it's like, oh, what if I'm doing work on the ground, like donating? And so, like, it's about creating conversation. Entering your credit card info and clicking donate is not a motherfucking conversation. Now, please continue donating. That is really nice to do.
hmm
But you need to talk to people. And even though making a post or making a story is like an indirect way to start a conversation, it's still starting a conversation.
hmm
You can't just say like, "Oh, but I'm donating and I'm reading." I'm like, but what about all these other people who don't know what's going on and like they don't think anyone cares because no one's talking about it?
yeah, and I think it's pretty common for us to think, oh, people don't care. Like, why should little old me post
Mm-hmm.
something? But it's true. Like, I didn't think people give a shit, but just to like, give it like anecdote story. Like, I posted something about like calling out versus calling in. Like, you should post, da da da. And one person was actually very vulnerable, and she DM'd me, and she was like, hey, like, thank you so much for posting this. Like, this really called me out, and like, I'm gonna, start to post about BLM.
Yeah.
Does that always happen? Hell no. For some reason, it happened with me.
Mm-hmm.
So just to show you, like, even though you don't get like a physical or a virtual like thank you,
Mm-hmm.
like again, people, like people watch your stories. If they, I don't know. That's an example of how you potentially can affect somebody for the better.
Exactly. Like we can't underestimate the power we have over people because we do. And a lot of people, I feel like, underestimate how much power they have because you have a lot of power. Everybody listening has a lot of power. Like you really could change somebody's mind. When you give someone a compliment, they feel good. You've influenced them to feel a way. When you
hmm
say something mean to someone, you made them feel bad. You've influenced them to feel some type of way.
Yeah, and to even go further with my friend, who came to grips. I was like, yeah, you are on this side of the oppressor. I'm really proud of her because after that, she posted on social media and she went to a protest with me,
Mm-hmm.
and she was really scared, but she still did it, and I'm really, really proud of her.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I like that. That it is a hard pill to swallow, but she swallowed it. And dealing and confronting with the ways that we support racism is a hard fucking pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But we have to swallow. That taken out of context.
But yes, people, we are social beings. We have power. I know it doesn't seem like it on a day-to-day basis, but individually and as a group, that's why the whole social contract, if our government is not treating us how the way we want to treat them, we can
Mhm.
abolish them. We can start over. Like we don't,
Yeah, and maybe some people are like, oh, but it's performative activism. Why do I need to post it online? Because it's just performative. And I'm all like, well, there's an easy solution to that. Don't make it fucking performative. Like post and then do
Mhm.
something. Like
Mhm.
you it's very easy to stop being performative. Just actually care.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was feeling a little performative when I was like screenshotting my donations, but
Mhm,
my intention was honestly so other people can donate. Because if they just say donate, but you don't know if they actually did, then it's like it
mhm.
doesn't really matter. But like I have had a friend who like donated money to like undocumented uh people who are undocumented, and I was like, I should do that too. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah, like, it influences people because like you said, we're social creatures.
yeah. We wanted to end off this podcast episode with just some insight about the civil rights movement. So I thought my misconception was like everyone was gung ho about the civil rights movement who, supported it. But one of the reasons why it was so successful is because of social pressure. Legit, like on the bus rides, the organizers, the key ones would ask, "Hey, are you going next week?" Multiple people asking their friends, "Are you going next week?" Or, "I'm going." They're going. Carolyn's going. Davi's going. "Oh, you're
Mhm,
not going? Why?" They really laid social pressure on people to really build momentum, and that
mhm.
was able to, that was really effective because it gained and sustained the momentum like that way. So I think we can really apply that to 2021 and the continuation of Black Lives Matters and other movements for liberation and justice. So in conclusion, we have a quote from RBG, RIP, about talking about racial injustice to your friends or how you should lead your way. Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you.
We're going to wrap up today's podcast here. We want to hear from you. So, what are your stories about talking to your peers, friends, and/or coworkers about Black Lives Matter, racial injustice, or political discussions in general? Or do you have any techniques that work well for you when you're talking about that? Or is something hindering you from talking about that kind of stuff? You could send us your opinions, questions, and thoughts at justtwoasianwomen@gmail.com.
And you can find our podcast on Spotify, Anchor FM, and YouTube.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed it, please consider sharing it with your friends. That would be awesome. You'll hear from us again next week. Again, my name is Carolyn.
And I'm Davy, and we're
Just two
two
Asian
Asian
women.
women.
Yay!
Yay!
That was good. That was good.